the epic tale of Queen Amina of Zazzau, the princess who would be queen. In the heart of what would one day become northern Nigeria, where the savannah stretched endlessly beneath the African sun, a baby girl was born to the royal family of Zazzau in 1533. They named her Amina, meaning trustworthy in Hausa. None could have known then that this child would grow to become the greatest warrior queen in the history of the Hausa states, expanding her kingdom's boundaries and becoming a legend that would echo through centuries. The morning of her birth, the palace griot spoke of unusual omens. Birds had gathered in unprecedented numbers on the palace walls, and a double rainbow had appeared despite there being no rain. The old women of the court whispered that these were signs of greatness to come, though many doubted such portents could apply to a girl child. Bakwa Turunku, Amina's mother and the reigning queen of Zazzau, knew better than to discount any child's potential. She herself had risen to power in a male-dominated society, ruling with wisdom and strength that had brought prosperity to their kingdom. As she held her newborn daughter, she saw in those bright eyes a fierce intelligence that would one day change the world. Young Amina grew up in the royal courts of Zazzau, a kingdom already famous for its strong cavalry and trade connections. The palace was a bustling center of commerce and politics, where merchants from across the Sahara brought goods from as far as Egypt and Turkey. As a child, Amina would sit for hours listening to tales from these travelers, absorbing stories of distant lands and different ways of warfare. Unlike other princesses who spent their days learning only domestic arts, Amina showed an early interest in military matters. Her grandfather, watching her intense fascination with the warriors' training sessions, gifted her with a dagger on her 6th birthday, an unusual present for a young girl, but one that would prove prophetic. "A weapon is only as good as the mind that wields it," he told her, watching her small hands grip the handle with surprising sureness. "And you, my little one, have a mind sharp enough to rule kingdoms." Queen Bakwa, rather than discourage these martial interests, supported her daughter's unusual inclinations. She ensured Amina received the same education as her brother, Karama. The young princess learned not only reading and writing, but also political strategy, trade negotiations, and the military arts. By the age of 13, Amina had mastered the art of horseback riding, becoming known for her ability to control even the most spirited stallions. She began attending military meetings with her father's permission, where she often surprised seasoned warriors with her tactical insights. "The girl thinks like a general," one of the military commanders remarked to Queen Bakwa. "She sees patterns in battle formations that even veterans miss." It was during these teenage years that Amina began her formal military training. Every morning, before the sun rose over the palace walls, she would join the warriors in their exercises. She learned to wield the sword, throw the spear, and shoot arrows with deadly accuracy. The other soldiers initially viewed her presence with skepticism, but her dedication and skill soon earned their respect. One day, during a particularly intense training session, 16-year-old Amina disarmed one of the kingdom's most respected warriors. The courtyard fell silent as the man's sword clattered to the ground. Then, to everyone's surprise, the warrior knelt before her. "My princess," he said, "you have the heart of a lion and the skill of a seasoned warrior. One day, armies will march under your command." While Amina excelled in military matters, Queen Bakwa ensured her daughter also learned the delicate art of governance. The princess attended court sessions, watching as her mother settled disputes, negotiated trade agreements, and managed the complex politics of the kingdom. "Power," Queen Bakwa would tell her, "comes not just from the sword, but from understanding the hearts of your people." Amina observed how her mother balanced strength with diplomacy, learning when to show force and when to extend mercy. She watched as Queen Bakwa expanded Zazzau's trade networks, making the kingdom a crucial hub in the trans-Saharan trade routes. The princess also developed a deep understanding of commerce, learning about the valuable commodities that passed through their lands: gold, salt, cloth, and most importantly, metal for weapons. She recognized early on that military might and economic power were inseparable. In 1549, when Amina was 16, Queen Bakwa died. As was custom, Amina's brother Karama ascended to the throne. Though many expected Amina to marry and retreat into a traditional female role, She instead became her brother's closest advisor and continued to develop her military skills. During Karama's 10-year reign, Amina served as the leading warrior of Zazzau's cavalry. She earned the respect of the military and developed innovative cavalry tactics that would later become her trademark. Her understanding of military strategy deepened, and she led numerous successful military campaigns. When Karama died in 1576, after ruling for 10 years, the kingdom found itself at a crossroads. Though there were male contenders for the throne, the people of Zazzau had watched Amina's growth from skilled warrior to capable leader. The Queen Mother's Council, remembering the prosperity under Queen Bakwa's rule and impressed by Amina's abilities, named her queen. On the day of her coronation, Amina stood before her people not in the traditional royal robes, but in warrior's attire, her sword at her side. Her first speech as queen set the tone for her reign. "I stand before you as your queen, but more importantly as a daughter of Zazzau. Our kingdom's strength lies not just in our walls or our weapons, but in our unity. Under my rule, we will expand our boundaries, strengthen our trade, and make Zazzau a force that all must reckon with." Amina wasted no time in implementing her vision. She understood that Zazzau's position as a trade hub made it both prosperous and vulnerable. Other kingdoms envied their wealth, and bandits constantly threatened their trade routes. Her solution was bold. Zazzau would become so militarily powerful that none would dare threaten its interests. In her first year as queen, Amina instituted mandatory military training for all able-bodied men. She reorganized the army, creating specialized units for cavalry, infantry, and archers. But her most significant innovation was the introduction of metal armor for her cavalry and their horses, a technological advantage that would prove decisive in many battles. The queen personally supervised the training of her elite cavalry unit, known as the Kiarmi. She drilled them in complex maneuvers and taught them to fight as a coordinated force rather than individual warriors. Under her guidance, the Zazzau military became the most disciplined and effective fighting force in the region. Amina's reign ushered in a new era of expansion for Zazzau. Her first military campaign came just 3 months after her coronation, when she led her army against a neighboring territory that had been raiding Zazzau's trade caravans. Dawn broke over the savannah as Amina led her army of 20,000 warriors toward the enemy territory. The sight was impressive: cavalry in gleaming metal armor, foot soldiers carrying spears and shields, and archers with their longbows. But more impressive was the queen herself, mounted on her warhorse, her armor catching the early morning sun. The battle that followed became legendary. Amina employed innovative tactics, using her cavalry to outflank the enemy, while her archers provided covering fire. The enemy, expecting traditional warfare, was unprepared for her sophisticated military strategies. By sunset, they had surrendered, and Zazzau had acquired its first new territory under Queen Amina's rule. This first victory was just the beginning. Over the next 34 years, Amina would lead her army on a campaign of expansion that would create an empire. She personally led her troops in almost annual campaigns, expanding Zazzau's territory to the largest it had ever been. But Amina was more than just a conqueror. In each territory she claimed, she immediately began building a network of fortified walls around major settlements. These walls, known as Ganawar Amina, Amina's walls, would become one of her most lasting legacies, with many still standing today. She also established a complex system of tribute from conquered territories, which brought immense wealth to Zazzau. However, she ensured that conquered peoples received benefits in return: protection, access to trade routes, and incorporation into Zazzau's prosperous economic network. Stories of Amina's military prowess spread far and wide. It was said that she never married because she had sworn that she would never submit to any man. According to legend, she took a temporary husband from among the soldiers after each battle, but had him executed the next morning to ensure he could never speak of their encounter. While such tales may be more myth than reality, they speak to the awe in which she was held. Enemy kingdoms surrendered at the mere news of her approach. Her name became synonymous with invincibility, and her kingdom's influence stretched across trade routes from Kano to the Atlantic coast. While Amina's military accomplishments drew the most attention, her reign was marked by equally impressive diplomatic and economic achievements. She understood that the military alone could not sustain an empire. Under Amina's rule, Zazzau became the center of North Africa's trade. She secured the trade routes from Timbuktu to Arabia, creating safe passages for merchants. She standardized the system of taxation and tribute, making it fair and efficient. One of her most significant innovations was the introduction of kola nut cultivation in the conquered territories. This valuable commodity became a significant source of wealth for her empire and remained so for centuries after her death. Amina's reign brought significant social changes to Zazzau. Women gained unprecedented rights and opportunities inspired by their warrior queen. She established a system of public works, building wells, markets, and hostels throughout her territories. Perhaps most importantly, she fostered a culture of excellence and meritocracy. In Amina of Zazzau, ability mattered more than birth or gender, a revolutionary concept for its time. The queen implemented a sophisticated administrative system to manage her vast territories. She appointed governors but maintained control through a network of spies and regular military inspections. She established a council of advisors that included both men and women, nobles and commoners, creating a more representative government than any previous ruler. As Amina aged, she did not slow down. Even in her 60s, she continued to lead military campaigns and personally supervise the training of her army. Her last major military campaign, at age 67, was as successful as her first had been. In her later years, Amina focused on consolidating her empire and ensuring its stability would outlast her reign. She codified the laws and customs of Zazzau, created a system for peaceful succession, and trained a new generation of military leaders in her tactics and strategies. According to tradition, Amina died in 1610 during a military campaign at Attagara. Even in death, she remained true to her warrior nature. Her army, it is said, buried her in a grave that has never been found, following her instructions that she should rest where she fell. Amina's influence on West African history cannot be overstated. She created the largest empire in the region at the time, introduced new military technologies and strategies, and established trading systems that would last for centuries. The walls she built, both literal and metaphorical, shaped the region's development. Many of the military innovations she introduced became standard practice throughout West Africa. The trade routes she secured remained active until the colonial period, and some of the administrative systems she established survived into modern times. While history remembers Amina primarily as a warrior queen, she was also a sophisticated ruler who understood that true power comes from more than just military might. She was a diplomat who could negotiate as skillfully as she fought, a trader who understood economics, and a leader who cared for her people's welfare. Her legacy lived on not just in stories and songs, but in the fundamental changes she brought to her society. She proved that gender was no barrier to greatness and that wisdom and strength could come in many forms. Today, Queen Amina of Zazzau remains an inspiration, particularly in Nigeria and across Africa. Her story challenges traditional gender roles and demonstrates the potential for female leadership in African societies. Recent archaeological discoveries have confirmed many aspects of the Amina legend. The remains of her famous walls can still be seen in various locations across northern Nigeria. Artifacts from her reign, including military equipment and trade goods, provide physical evidence of her empire's sophistication and reach. Amina's influence on Hausa culture cannot be overstated. She became a role model for generations of women, and her story is still told in songs, poems, and plays. In modern Nigeria, she is remembered as a national hero, with universities, schools, and public buildings named in her honor. The story of Amina of Zazzau offers several lessons relevant to modern times. 1. Leadership knows no gender. 2. Military power must be balanced with diplomatic skill. 3. Innovation and adaptation are keys to success. 4. Economic development and security go hand in hand. 5. Strong institutions are crucial for lasting impact. As the sun sets over modern-day Zaria, formerly Zazzau, the legacy of Queen Amina lives on. The walls she built still stand as testament to her vision and determination. The trade routes she secured became the foundations of modern highways. The principles of governance she established continue to influence leadership in the region. In the markets and streets, mothers still tell their daughters the story of the warrior queen who refused to accept limitations, who rode into battle at the head of her army, who built an empire with wisdom and strength. They tell of how she changed not just the boundaries of her kingdom, but the boundaries of what women could achieve. Amina of Zazzau was more than just a queen who ruled, more than just a warrior who conquered. She was a revolutionary who showed that greatness knows no gender, that leadership requires both strength and wisdom, and that one person's vision can change the course of history. In the words of a Hausa proverb, the sword of Amina was sharp, but her mind was sharper still. Her true legacy lies not just in the territory she conquered or the walls she built, but in the example she set, an example that continues to inspire new generations to dream beyond the boundaries others set for them. As night falls over the lands that once formed her empire, the story of Amina, the warrior queen of Zazzau, continues to echo through time, a reminder that in every age, there are those who dare to challenge the impossible and succeed. Queen Amina of Zazzau was indeed the true definition of boss lady. The end. If you want us to share more historical and educative stories like this, please share, like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching.